that. I want to be aware of everyone's
Yeah.
time and go ahead and get us started.
Right, we're good to go.
Are we recording? Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. So thank you so much for joining us this cold day for most of us here in January of 2025. Welcome to any new chapter leaders that we may have on the call, or those who are continuing in roles, maybe have moved to another role. This is our first webinar of the year. We conduct several webinars throughout the year to help us support you and your chapter roles and positions that you may have. And this first one that we're going to go through is really just the kind of what I consider down and nitty gritty of resources that we have to support you in your endeavors in your local chapters. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. And I've broken it down into 3 different sections here. And really, there are some expectations that we have for you all as chapter leaders. And I think first and foremost is our chapters are extensions of the Institute. You are local entities out there, local groups, mini groups, if you will, of the Institute, working on behalf of NIGP, but on behalf of your membership at large as well. So you really are that local face, that grassroots, and are very, very important to the Institute. You also work to promote the programs and membership of the Institute. And we also went through a complete rebranding several years of logos to have this visual consistency with NIGP so that our members, your members, knew that there was a connection and a relationship to the Institute itself. The next are expectations for your members. And these are the things of really probably why you have stepped up in your role as your leader, as a chair, as a board member, whatever it might be. And that's really to provide for your membership, whether that's through educational opportunities, networking and social events. You're constantly retaining and recruiting your members. And you're also gathering feedback on those programs, services, education to modify or create new programs. We have found historically that planning ahead, long-term planning really is the benefit of the chapter to get more of your members engaged, is that they know what a calendar year looks like for your chapter. So I really encourage you when it comes to planning or looking at your year of events and activities for your chapter, to plan ahead, to really take this month and next month and map out what you have to offer for your membership over the next year. And the last piece of that expectation is really for you all as your leadership is training and recruiting your leaders, some of that which we do, some of that of which you do. Have you participate on things that NIGP provides for you, whether those are our leader calls, webinars like this, attending Chapter Academy, our awards program, engaging any of our incentive programs that we'll talk about, as well as maintaining your annual reporting to the Institute and to your state, the IRS. None of that fun stuff that we like to do, but still has to be done, are those expectations that we have for you as chapter leaders. So if we go and look at that first piece of that, and that's that mission, I want to talk a little bit about what we used to call the chapter affiliation agreement. And why I want to bring this up is that we completely overhauled that in 2021. So if you are a fairly new leader within your chapter, a new board member, this may be something you are not aware of, haven't seen, haven't looked at yet. It was signed at that time by your current president. And I think it's really important that as new boards, oops, sorry about that, as new boards come on, is that you are making sure that your new leadership is aware of this agreement, what's in it, what it contains, what those expectations are. And there really are 2 pieces to it. First, we titled the first section of it, The Guiding Principles of Alliance. And this is just the intent of our relationship with our chapters, that framework, what it looks like, those principles and those roles that we serve in. And then that second piece is what we consider the operating framework. And that really focuses on kind of that nuts and bolts of accountability, responsibility, what NIGP's responsibility is, and what the responsibility of the chapter is. So again, I encourage you as a board to review that annually. If you have not heard of it, haven't seen one, a copy hasn't been sent down from leadership to leadership, let us know. And that is something that we can get to you, and what that copy was. We don't intend on having that signed every year. The only change or new one that we would have is if we have any addendums to it. If anything major happens in the relationship with our chapters or how that functions or works, we would do an addendum to it. So that one, as of 2021, is the last one. All chapters have signed them, and that's the one that we are using as, again, what we used to call that affiliation agreement. So I encourage you as a new board coming on to ask about that, and to look at that as a board. Ask any questions that you have about that. The second piece of kind of that mission of the Institute, and we talked about that branding, in which you can see here on the slide, all of our chapters actually went through this logo redesign. So we had some of this branding that tied to the Institute. So we felt this connection of our chapters and NIGP as a whole. And with that came a new service that we offer to our chapters, and that's this free website hosting. We currently have 47 chapters on our Club Express platform, and are still continuing to grow that. But just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the new features that are coming out, or some of the things that we really like about what we've been able to do with Club Express. If you are not a chapter that's on that platform yet, we are going to share this slide deck as well as the recording. But that is hyperlinked. That gets started with a site today, and that will take you to what Club Express has to offer, the process, how long it takes, all of those intricate questions that you have. But three things that I want to highlight that to let you know about the Club Express is really our dedicated support. We have team members within Club Express that are there to support you, to answer those questions. I think the most beneficial thing that we have are our bi-monthly office hours that allows you all to come in twice a month to ask very specific questions, pull up your website, look at the back end of things, that I think is very helpful in those training. As you all know, you probably have some new leaders coming in right now that haven't been trained yet and need that training. So in 2025, we're going to do some free customized training per chapter if you request that. So those bi-monthly office hours are really for all chapters. Everybody comes, anybody wants to ask a question, or even if you don't have a question, it's a great time to just come and listen and learn. But if you want to do some new one-on-one training, you have a fairly new board, you have a lot of people you want to kind of get up to speed, that we're going to be offering this free customized training for your chapter. So very excited about that new endeavor that we're doing. I also wanted to just do a quick shout out. That website hosting is thank you to Sourcewell. They are the ones that fund that for all of our chapters. So we're very thankful that they have put that money forth and see the value in our chapters to be able to provide that free of charge to you all. So now let's go to that section piece that we talked about, and what you're doing is expectation of serving your members. And we talked about education and content. So I want to talk about some resources that we have to support you in that area. And first, I want to talk about our chapter ambassador program. This is, gosh, I wanted to say new, and it's actually not new anymore, but it's been around almost 10 years now. We have 24 ambassadors that are broken up into our 9 geographic areas that all our chapters are in. And our ambassadors are truly that, are ambassadors to come out to your chapters to speak to your membership on lots of topics, as you can see here, from benefits of the Institute of pathway certification. They can swear in officers. They can have like you see a picture here, Whitney is actually at a booth that we have that we can put out by registration or in the expo hall. So there are lots of things that our ambassadors can do for your chapter. We do have a rotation schedule that, because of budgeting, that we allow our ambassadors to come every other year face to face to be in front of your membership, and virtually every year, since that doesn't cost anything. So we encourage you to reach out to your ambassadors. We have them listed here within the slide deck, but also on our website, for you to go out and make this visit request form for them to come, and then you can select what topic or what things you'd like them to do while you're there. I like to take it a little step further, that our ambassadors are much more than just there to speak. That first thing, to connect with your membership, to talk about the resources that the Institute has, the upcoming education that we may be promoting. But they're there also to advocate for you as a chapter with your successes as well as your struggles, and to help with those. And they're also a resource for you. To help with any issues that you may have, engagement in building strong relationships. So it's a complete package, other than just there to come and make a presentation, but they really are there to support you in your leadership for any struggles, any success that you may be having in a chapter. So please expect to hear from them within the next couple months, and as a welcome to our new chapter officers that have come in that may not know who their ambassadors are, and to start connecting and building those relationships. I talked about those 9 geographic areas, as you can see here on this map. If you're new to the chapter world, you may not know what geographic area you fall into. This kind of defines that out for you. And in these next slides, again, kind of detailed, small, but you will have this as a takeaway. We break down who all our chapter ambassadors are in every area. For the 9 areas, we also have 3 at-large ambassadors as well. So they are, again, here to help support you. The next thing that we have when it comes to education and topics is actually staff to come to your chapter events as well. They can speak on very similar things that our ambassadors can. We also have our NIGP Business Council that comes out to our chapters, that talks about procurement related to topics in a panel discussion. Our CEO can do a welcome video or presentations, as well as swearing in of officers or a booth. So can do very similar things. I will point out that for our visit program, whether it's staff or it's our ambassadors, it is all fully funded by the Institute. It is nothing that you all have to pay out of your pocket. So please think of us when maybe you're having a quarterly membership meeting and you want to learn more about pathways. We can have our director of education talk about what kind of education that we have, the way we're offering it, how you build on it, things like that, our member benefits, or what does our mentorship program mean, and things like that. So certainly think about that for not just your big conferences, but any of your little virtual monthly meetings or quarterly meetings that you may have with your membership. Another way the Institute can connect with you is by hosting an NIGP course. This can be done virtually or in person. We have an area here on our website that gives you a step-by-step process. This is a quick down and dirty of that process. We do have to have a signed seminar agreement. We ask that you survey or have already surveyed your members to really know what is the education and content that they would like to hear. NIGP can do that for you as well. We have checklists, the list of course catalogs, and of course promoting that course out. The other key takeaway from this is that when you host a course, you do get a rebate of 10%. That's whether you're in person or remote, or virtual. And if you're virtual, if we've had this happen once, that a chapter hosted and nobody from their chapter registered. It was from all over the United States. which is great what can happen with virtual, but you still get that rebate for that course. So a good way to put some money back into the chapter is to host a course. With that said, we also have the Learn and Give Back program. So let's say your chapter is not hosting a course and your members are attending an NIGP hosted virtual course. You can earn money when those individuals register for a course. If they check their chapter name, every quarter we will give you 5% gross revenue of that registration for their attendance. So this is a great piece for you to promote to your chapter members to let them know that, hey, we may not be hosting something this quarter, this year at all, but if you attend any of NIGP's virtual courses, we can get money back into our bank to help with our scholarship programs or whatever you may be using those funds for. So you want to make sure that they indicate their chapter name when they register. To go along with that, NIGP plans out our education a year in advance. And just like I talked about you all planning your year out or a plan in advance, we're offering a discount if you register 60 days in advance. So that's whether you're hosting a course, whether your members are taking any of our courses, there's a 20% discount for registering that 60 days in advance. So do we have any questions, Merve, that came up in that last two sections? I know you've been posting, if anybody's watching the chat, she's been posting all the links and things that I've been talking about. But did anybody, if you want to take yourself off mute, did anybody have any questions about those items?
No, not at this time. Just a lot of engagement, but no
Okay,
question
perfect.
came.
So now let's talk about you as leaders yourselves. And I keep using that word chapter leader. And some people kind of are taken off by that and think I'm just a chair, I'm just a board member. We consider at the Institute anybody that serves in the capacity of those, what I consider those top tiers in your chapter as leaders. So again, it could be your elected president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, Pro-D. It could be your board members, a board member at large. It could be your membership communication chair, your legislative chair. So any of those type of people, we always are calling leaders. So when I talk about that, when I talk about these benefits and programs, it is not just for those that have been elected into those president and vice president roles, but it's anybody who's serving in that capacity on your board, your executive board, that are doing things on behalf of the chapter that we consider leaders. So this next section, we're going to talk about how we can help and support you in the various programs that we have in place for that. So I'm going to start off first by talking about our recognition and awards program. These applications for both will be due in May. We have not set a specific date for those yet, and a webinar will be coming out in February detailing both of these programs, any changes we've made to them, due dates. We can set up one-on-one meetings. We'll talk all about that in the webinar, but I just want to give you a high overarching of what the recognition program is and what the award program is. First, we have our chapter performance standard seal. This is a seal that you earn in which you asked to answer a multiple of questions. You need to earn a minimum score to receive and earn your seal. And these are standards that NIGP, your chapter ambassadors, have decided are kind of a good baseline of what all chapters should be working on, working in. And then based on that seal, you earn one of these 4 tiers of a virtual seal that you can print, post on your website, wherever like that. So we have great participation in that. I will tell you, a lot of chapters have felt, oh, we're small, we don't do a lot. I'm not sure that we could even get the minimum score. Last year, we were really excited to see several chapters that were just rebuilding themselves, starting from scratch, or thought they were too small, that were really able to earn that bronze seal. And that's a seal of excitement that you guys are doing great things for your membership. So I really encourage you to look at that application when it comes out. You can set up one-on-one meetings with your ambassador or with me to talk about it. There's a lot of, they're either yes or no questions or a data question, a number in which we provide quite a bit of that data for you. But again, lots of details coming out about that next month. The other side of it is the awards program, which is Outstanding Chapter Awards. And we recognize those in operations, membership, advocacy, and professional development. And here we're looking for you to share your best practice, an incredible event, an incredible program that your chapter does that you think rises to that level of being recognized. Now, it may be something that you think, well, we always do a reverse trade show. It's not that big of a deal. But you'd be surprised to know how many people really want to know about how to put on a good reverse trade show. And if you have success in that, that's something to submit for this outstanding award. So others can maybe tweak theirs or see how you do theirs different. And our intent with this certainly is to award a winner in each one of those, but we share all of those submissions that we put into the online resource library so that everybody can see some good best practices in any of these areas. So again, more details coming about that program.
Hey, Jen, we received a really good question from Annette about the badges. She asked, may the image of the performance seal be used like a badge to be applied to email signatures, award pages, and on chapter websites?
Absolutely. So once you are given this virtual seal, I encourage you as a chapter to put it everywhere and anywhere you can. I really think that it is a badge of honor. I think it's great for recruitment to think about it if you're going to an agency maybe that has never been a member before to say, hey, we've been given a gold seal standard from the Institute that we are producing and doing great things. And this is why you should join us. So I encourage you to use those however and wherever that you can. So that was a great question. Absolutely. The next item we're going to talk about, which is coming up here very quickly, is our Leadership Summit. Leadership Summit is a program, a 2-day program, 3-day actually, that has got 3 different tracks. And our chapter leaders fall into one of those tracks, what we've historically called Chapter Academy. So that is coming up in February in Chicago, Illinois. We still have time to register. There are several chapters that we have not heard from. We have until the 17th of January to get you registered. And each chapter can send one free person. That includes registration and 3 nights housing and your food. So all you would have to pay for is your travel. And you can send a second person that covers that will get the registration, the housing, the food for $1,050. So it's a great opportunity for you, especially if you got some new leaders coming in, to collaborate with well over 100 chapter leaders, but close to 200 leaders in general, whether they're emerging, whether they are seasoned leaders. We do work together collectively with the 3 groups, and then we break out into our respective chapter academy. But we, in our chapter academy group, we'll do problem solving, we'll have panel discussions. You'll be able to sit with other people that have similar titles than you within your chapter to really talk and learn from each other what everybody's doing, share those struggles, take back new ideas. I will tell you that people who actually have come before and come again, love that experience of being with people just like you, in which you have raised your hand or been voluntold to be in a position. But really, what can you do to make changes, to make things better, and share those experiences with each other? So it's a really exciting 3 days. So if you have not registered yet, we encourage you to get that in the next 2 weeks so you can be part of that group.
Jen, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we are intending to send a representative, but our chapter would like to pay for her to be able to come in the night before, which means we're going to pay her hotel. I'm assuming a lot of folks are going to be doing that. So if she does the reservation for the hotel, do we just send you a note to say, hey, Jen, can you reserve it for the 19th to the 22nd? And then you guys will figure out how to do the billing?
So good question, Ginny. So anybody who, since we are covering 3 nights, when you fill out the registration form, and Reve just put that into chat, if you want to stay 4 nights, come in early, stay later, we will book all of your hotel regardless for the dates that you provide to us. What happens is when you come in to check in, it'll show that NIGP covers 3 of those nights, and then you'll be asked to pay and cover the beginning or the end or any extra nights that you may be staying. So it'll happen right there at the hotel to cover those extra nights payment, but we will book them in advance for you and get you confirmation numbers next month. Ginny, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Good question. Any other questions about Academy coming up? Anybody, well, let me just take a moment here. Anybody want to share an experience they've had maybe to help promote of what you got out of Academy, if you've been before, why you want to send somebody? Charlie, I see your hand up. Of course, you, Charlie.
Hello, my good friend, and hello, all my NIGP peeps. Hopefully you could hear me okay. For those that haven't been to Summit, go. It is a great, great time to network with your fellow peers on a much smaller scale than Forum. Obviously, Forum is absolutely insane and crazy and fun. But take that into a smaller scale with about 200-ish people, right, Jen?
Yep.
I've been to many summits and I just keep going back just because I always get something out of it. I always meet a new face, network with new people. That's what I love about it. So plus the sessions, the different segments are absolutely phenomenal. Jen and her team and NIGP do such a fantastic job. So I encourage you to attend, even though it's going to be freaking.
It's going to be cold. Thank you, Charlie. I think one thing that he said that's really important to know is that, it's a step up from what you might do, or not a step up, but an extension of something different than local. So you get that networking with people outside of just your geographic area, your chapter, your agency, but it's not as big as Forum where you can get lost, overwhelmed. This is so much more intimate. Everybody there is in a leadership role in some capacity. And then really for us to break out and spend that time to talk about our chapters and what you're doing within the chapters and how we can support that. So that's what I think is that kind of key. But thank you, Charlie, for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jen, I do want to add to Charlie's notes as well as, if you are a new leader, you will meet another cohort, I'm going to call it, at that academy that's in the same role. And you can compare notes or share lessons learned, or actually like, hey, I'm struggling on this. Are you guys struggling with the same thing in this role? And I think it's the place to actually, like, when you go there, bring a copy. And I know it's still old fashioned, bring your hard copy, if not on your iPad, a copy of your bylaws, your strategic plan, and use that to really maximize that time, because when you're in the office, you can't do that really. So use Academy time to kind of reassess where your chapter is at, where it's lacking, where it needs help. Or if you're, and I'm going to boast about our emerging program, professional program, right? Like, are you interested in doing that? Go network with people that have done it successfully and see if that's something new that you want to introduce to your chapter.
Thank you, Jenny. Absolutely. I'm going to go back real quick. Tara did ask a question about the awards program. And Tara, we have not launched the new applications yet. So Merve did post the link of where you'll be able to find them, where you can find winners. But the new applications will be coming out the end of this month with a webinar next month for you to apply for the seals that we do in May that we will give out at the annual forum in July. But good question. Thank you guys for sharing about Academy. Again, I think it's a great experience and certainly will go away with lots of ideas, sometimes too many, but it's really exciting to be with your peers that are sitting in those seats that you're sitting in as a chapter leader.
Yeah, and Jen, can I add one thing? So
Sure.
make sure to bring your business cards too, so that you can trade it and as you make connections with these other chapters, and are able to share maybe things that you're struggling with, that maybe things that they're excelling at, and you can get, all kinds of resources from them, and all kinds of ideas. And Peggy does a really good job too. We know that all the chapters are really struggling with volunteerism, right? Getting volunteers and getting them engaged. So Peggy gives some really, and other chapters there are going to give some really great ideas about how to get more of that in your chapter. So make sure to bring a notebook too, or type lots of notes.
Yes, absolutely. I will say, I'm surprised Charlie didn't say it. From the first time we had Chapter Academy, I know that some of our chapter leaders have created not just associates, but friendships in a group like this where it's intimate, where it has been lifelong relationships that are built, that you always have somebody you can support on. So there's something, I don't want to say there's something magical, but there is something special that happens at Chapter Academy when you connect in a small group like that. So very exciting. At Academy last year, speaking of, we launched a brand new program, and that's our Chapter SME program. This is an opportunity where you as a chapter have the ability to submit a request for a SME in a certain subject. So say your chapter has never put together a budget, and you really want some help or support on doing that. You can fill out the SME form, and then I pair you up with one of our 30 SMEs to do some one-on-one work to help with that. It could be on strategic planning or running an effective board, whatever your chapter may be struggling with. We'll be able to connect you with a SME to help with some of that one-on-one. Charlie, did you have another question?
Hi, Jen. Before you move
Yep.
on, from Chapter Academy, Susan
Sure.
did have a great question, and it's good to probably clarify with the whole group. She asked, is there a one-time attendance for Academy? Example, if a first-time leader attended previous years, will they be allowed to attend again?
Yes, they can attend again and again. It's interesting, Susan, you say that. The program is never exactly the same each year. I will tell you the themes or the subject matter may be similar. We'll talk about volunteerism, but it's presented in a different way. And because we have such a different audience, you're going to take away something different. So yes, if you've gone before, you can come again. And I do encourage you, if you have a chapter that has a budget, to send 2 people. We've heard back from chapters that send 2, that it's nice that 2 are there to split themselves up, sit at different groups, talk to different people, and then actually have the 2 of you go back together to your board and synthesize, what did you hear? What is it that we want to maybe change in our chapter or bring back to our board to consider? So if you do have the budget, I do encourage you to send 2 people. But yes, if you've gone before, you can still come again. Good question. All right, so now let's dive into the bulk of where all of these resources are that we're going to start talking about here. If you're on the NIGP website page, on this blue bar, Chapters has our own dropout where you're going to find all of these resources. We're going to go through most of the ones on the right, but I did want to talk about our Insight community. We do have an Insight community for chapter leaders only. Our directory lists all of our chapters, their sites, and once you click on the name of the chapter, the current leaders will pull up. And under our chapter connections, this is where you're going to find your chapter newsletters that you share, upcoming chapter events, leaders in the loop past that have gone out, recordings of the huddles. That's where you'll find that stuff. But let's talk about the resource library and this right side of the page. So let's dive into that a little bit. And the resource section of itself is divided by subject matters. So the first we have is governance. And what we just define as governance is really your structure, the rules you abide by. So of course, that's your chapter bylaws first. Almost every chapter has their bylaws on this page for you to see as an example. They're organized by size. As a reminder, if you are updating or changing your bylaws, NIGP needs to review those before you send those to your membership for a vote. We ask that we see them in a red line or with a cover letter letting us know what you want to change. That way we make sure that while you all are governed by yourselves, you are independent of the Institute in that fact, then we want to make sure that you still comply and stay within the parameters of NIGP as a whole. But under this section, you're also going to see sample position descriptions, how to run successful board meetings, policy manuals. There is actually a installation of officers. But two things in here we just did webinars on in the fall that I encourage you, if you're new or haven't listened to them yet, is we do have a webinar that a chapter did for us on board transitions and how to set up a transition meeting. It was called Chapter Boot Camp, from your current board to your new board. And we also had one that was done on strategic planning of the nuts and bolts from the beginning to the end, who to incorporate, how you have those discussions, what is a strategic plan for a chapter, taking small bites of it. So encourage you to look at that. I will say as we go through this resource library, the library is really only as good as the information I get from you. The majority of it is built on your sample position descriptions, your chapter bylaws, your strategic plans. So I always encourage you as chapters to please send those to me. If you update or do one, send them to me so I can put them on here, because this is where I send everybody to when they say, you know, what should our treasurer be doing? What's the position of the treasurer look like? I'm going to send somebody here first to say, look at what other chapters are doing in their description of what the roles and responsibilities of a treasurer are. So again, encourage you to share those with me. The next two sections, financial management, legal taxes. Financial management has some things that probably are not as relevant to a chapter that is ongoing. Some of it is really about starting a chapter, but we do have sample chapter budgets in there. We have debit card procedures. A lot of chapters ask me about record retention. So we follow or ask our chapters to follow a record retention schedule like NIGP. How many things do you need to keep in hard copy versus scanning? Here we do have treasurer position descriptions and procedures because we feel they're so important. But here I have highlighted in red one of the most important things that I think for chapters is some internal financial controls. It's really hard to see sometimes when a chapter runs into some major financial or money issues, and a lot of it comes down to not having certain things in place when it comes to your finances. And what I'm talking about are examples of your bank statements not just going to your treasurer, but they're going to your president and your vice president as well. So several people can see those. You have multiple signatures on checks or accounts. Your president and treasurer don't work for the same agency, and one's a boss and one's an employee. It's things like that. Or a treasurer only submits an Excel spreadsheet to show where they are in the budget, but doesn't have any backup material to prove what those numbers mean. So really important for chapters to look at that, to really encourage your treasurers to look at that and see that you have certain controls in place that you put into policy to make sure that things don't happen as people taking money from the chapter, money disappearing, arguments about budgets and who used what and we didn't approve it. All of that is defined in these internal financial controls. Next, we have legal, tax, and insurance as a section. Here we talk and have some information about your duties as a board. I'm assuming that a lot of you came into this role not knowing about how to run a nonprofit, and that's what you're doing as a president or a treasurer of a chapter. So we talk about those roles and responsibilities. We offer to our chapters free general liability insurance. This is a certificate that we give to the chapters each year. A lot of you are familiar with these. Your venues, when you hold events, sometimes require that you have this. But there are other types of insurance that chapters can carry. Directors and officers insurance is one of them. And some of our chapters choose to partake in that. That's a level of insurance for your top officers of your board. You can have event insurance. So we've defined those in that area. Those are insurances that you would need to get on your own through the chapter's funds. But we do, again, give this free general liability each year to our chapters. We have a legal and tax webinar in this section. It is fairly old. I don't know whether it's a good thing or bad thing, but in the legal world of nonprofits, it doesn't change much, and it doesn't change quickly. We're hoping to do another one this fall. But there is a lot of good information in there, kind of tying right back to that responsibilities of your board that you may not know when taking this role that are required of you. Also, we have all of our IRS 990 links. So we'll talk a little bit more about things that are due to the IRS, but this is where you're going to find that. I will also say down here is that we do offer legal consultation when needed. I hate to say that I hope no chapter ever has to deal with that. But if you get into a situation in which we may need legal to look into something that's happening at the chapter level, that is something initially that we offer free of charge, depending on what it is. You may need to seek your own legal counsel, but we can certainly do that on the onset without a fee or charge back to the chapter. The next section we have is membership, and anything you can think of. Membership is here, from brochures. And again, these are, when I say these are samples. These are samples of what your fellow chapter leaders have that they've shared with us, what their scholarship programs look like, if they have a mentoring program, how they recognize or engage members, some unique or fun ideas they've done about that. It's all going to be found in this area under membership. One thing I like to let our chapters know that many don't take advantage of, because your membership can be chapter only members and not belong to the Institute, you would be surprised how many people belong to the Institute and aren't a chapter member. I call it our low-hanging fruit for you all. And at any time, you can ask for a listing of members by state. So if you're doing a membership campaign and you want to seek out and see who these people are, or have a conference coming up, you can request this listing from NIGP, that you can see who's not a member and possibly get them to become members of your chapter. So I encourage you, your membership chair, to maybe twice a year to ask for that. Our membership at the Institute level is anniversary year. So every month there's new people on it. It's changing. So encourage you to ask for that, to do those campaigns or pushes for your conferences. The next section we have is events and conferences. Here is where you're going to find how to put on reverse trade shows, hosting virtual events, a golf tournament. We have code of conduct. This is NIGP's. And we encourage all of our chapters to use that, to have that within their print of events. We have a sample certificate of attendance if you wanted one. But I think what's really important in this section that a lot of chapters inquire about is sponsorships. So we have sponsorship tiers, what other chapters are doing. We also have a short little video from Duff at Sourcewell that talks about how sponsors really want to engage with chapters, how they want to be asked to participate. So a really good video on that. The other section we have is marketing. You'll find things on social media. Some of our chapters are involved in legislation. We have procurement month. Also in marketing, we have a chapter marketing toolkit. In this toolkit, we've tried to make it very easy for you to promote, to talk about anything Institute-wise. If you're already on Club Express, you know that we have a section of your website in which we can push content out, so we don't have to ask you hey, we're getting ready to promote forum, let your members know about it, that we just push that onto your website. But within this toolkit, we have the usage of NIGP logos, how you can use it, any current promotions. If we're getting ready to promote VCon or a conference, pathway certification, there is imagery, text, things that you can drop into newsletters, put into social media, is all there pre-made for you so that you can put that and share with your members at ease.
Jen, may I
Lots
ask a few questions
Sure,
before we move on to
absolutely.
resources? Thank you so
Sure,
much.
sure.
We
No,
have
go for it, go for it.
We have a few questions just about membership, so everyone is on the same page. We have one. Can you confirm if chapter membership has any jurisdictional restrictions? That is one question.
Okay, so there's a couple things, nuances around that. When we form a chapter, if you're not a statewide chapter, I'll give Florida as an example where there's multiple chapters. We do define a geographic area in which a chapter serves. That would be by counties. And that's usually where the core of your membership comes from. Does it preclude somebody from somewhere else joining your chapter? No. We do encourage our chapters to open membership. So if somebody from maybe a chapter beside you, it's quicker to drive over there, you would encourage them to join. Maybe you travel a lot with your agency or have family in a certain area and maybe want to join a chapter where they are because sometimes they have events. So no, we do not. We have a geographic boundary when we form a chapter, but when it comes to membership, your bylaws will dictate it, but we would certainly encourage you to take members from wherever if they find value in belonging to your chapter.
Okay. And to tie in with the same person that asked, how long does it take the national to review bylaw changes?
So that's something that I do. It doesn't take too long. I usually can do it within a couple of weeks. So certainly the process that we like is that you as a board sit and decide what changes you want to make. You vote on those as a board to agree on them, redline them, send them to me. Within a week or two, I review, make any comments, additions, and then you would take them out to your membership to vote.
Thank you. And then before, just one more, and then we'll take Catherine. She has a question. We did have a question about membership. To clarify with everyone, is there a discount offered to dual members to entice them to join vote?
Gary, very interesting you asked that. We're actually running pilot programs about
we
that
are.
right now. That is something that we are very much looking into. NIGP is actually with a third party reviewing our due structure and what it means to have a membership. What do you get for it? The pricing, how do chapters fall into that? So yes, that is something under consideration right now. So just stay tuned for more information on that.
And then Catherine, please feel free.
I just have a quick question. When we have members who have multiple memberships in other chapters, does anybody have any language? Because a lot of chapters offer scholarships, and any member of the chapter can then apply for a scholarship for a class. But then if they belong to another chapter, they could also apply for a scholarship in that chapter. So it gives them multi-chapter opportunities to scholarships. So I was just wondering if there's anything there that helps with that, or what the viewpoint is from NIGP standpoint.
Catherine, that's a very good question. It's interesting. It's never been raised before. I think it hasn't been raised because I don't know that we have an abundance of people that join multiple chapters. I think it's got to be defined in your bylaws in a way that makes sense of why somebody is joining, or that asterisk of a review of why somebody in Florida would want to join a Texas chapter, say, perhaps.
All right.
I think you just need to define that in your policies and procedures and under your qualifications. But it's interesting. It's never been come up before about kind of almost double dipping, if you will. Does
Right.
anybody have any, I don't know if, does anybody want to share? It's something we'd have to dive a little bit deeper into because it just has never come up before.
Well, you know, we're very unique here in Tennessee, how we're set up, and we do have dual memberships in several chapters. And so that's why I was just wondering, I've now stepped into the presidential position of what is the best way to handle that component. I agree with, you know, it's great if somebody's hosting something and you can go over there and participate in that meeting or go to another meeting. Those are wonderful benefits of belonging to multiple chapters. But this other component, I was just curious about it.
And, you know, it really is going to play into part, I think, Catherine, in an area like yours or even Florida, in which there are so many that are close together, statewide may not see it as much because it's an expansive area. But where you find there's one I can drive to here, Tennessee has got 3, they can belong to all. So I'm seeing some things come up in the chat here. Lori, you had a response to this as well?
Yeah, I was just going to say in Virginia, it's pretty commonplace. So we have people that are members of the Washington, D.C. chapter, as well as the Virginia chapter for VAGP. And I would say in most cases that I'm aware of that they're members of both, they're active in both associations. So I'm not sure that you would necessarily want to limit them being able to get the scholarship if they're as active. I saw somebody in the chat, Jen, you can see that too, I think, where it said, you know, you have to have certain participation in order to qualify. So they have criteria. But, you know, what I've seen is some of those members are just as active in both organizations.
And Lori, I like that you said that, Catherine. So think about that. If, you know, to anybody who has a point system or an activity log or however they give scholarship money away, is that if you are that active in multiple chapters, then probably you should be eligible if you're really contributing and participating, that maybe it wouldn't be as so much of a big deal, especially if you set that parameter that you have to engage to be eligible to get that money.
Great.
Does that make
Thank you
sense?
so much for everyone's feedback. I greatly appreciate it.
Sure. I just think defining that will help from the use of, you know, double dipping or just going to all the pots. But is there participation at a high enough level that actually deserves getting that money?
Right. I agree. That makes perfect sense. Like I said, I'm kind of new to this, so I just wanted to see if anybody else was having, you know, any type of situation or might have some language that would be helpful if we need to update our bylaws.
I will, you know what I would do is after this, and I'll ask Merve and I to make a reminder of it, is maybe post it, and I'm getting ready to talk about it, the Insight community for chapter leaders, and maybe somebody has some written policy or something already within either their bylaws, their membership descriptions, their scholarship program that kind of defines out a little bit better that you may be able to use it.
All right. Thank you so much.
I find it's interesting. People have talked about this, and I've heard this over and over again, that a lot of chapters have scholarship money, but they can't give it away. And that's a whole nother subject, a whole nother issue we could go down a bunny trail on of how to use your scholarship money when people aren't applying for it. That's for another webinar for another day. But I do know that has happened in many states. But I'm going to end here on resources. I talked about the chapter connections area. This is where we have our chapter newsletters. I asked that if you're doing newsletters, this seemed to be a comeback in the last couple of years of chapters doing quarterly newsletters, to share those with me. This is actually a great resource for you to look at to see what other chapters are doing. What is the subject matter that they're teaching on? How are they recognizing their members? It's just nice to see what other chapters are doing. So please share those. I did just talk about our own Insight community for chapter leaders that you can join. This is a great place to ask these questions that we just got is what is another chapter doing? Can I see a sample of your policy? Can you share X with me? It's a great resource for doing that. I'm highlighting chapter webinars here. It's something we're really going to push this year. A lot of times we do these webinars and people can't attend. We record everything and we have the slide deck. So in this section, when we did that drop down, we have chapter webinars. We will always have our recordings, whether it's Pro D calls, the awards, this one, if we do something on legal, will all be there. And they're there for the last couple years as well for you to go and see. We also have chapter leader calls where actually we did a survey. Some of you may have seen that in December, in which we asked about our chapter leader calls and our chapter huddles that we did last year. And we're working on how are we going to communicate the rest of the year with you all as chapter leaders. So stay tuned for calendaring, ideas, subject matters that will come out for us to engage like this, where we can have these discussions, ask questions of each other and share. The last thing I'm going to end with is the required reporting forms. We have several that are due each year from our chapters. I do not want to assume that if you've come into a role that you automatically know what these requirements are. They were given to you, they were passed down. So I want to go through each one of these, what it means, when it's due, and why we collect them. So the first two that we're going to talk about are the ones that are due January 31st, and that's your leadership reporting form and your member data form. Your leadership reporting form is just that. It is letting us know who your current leadership is. I talked about this at the beginning of the conversation, that we're defining a leader as your officers, your board members, your committee chairs, anybody that you want NIGB communicating to when it comes to the subject matter of chapters, to get leaders in the loop, to be invited to webinars, things of that nature. So that's what you're going to put on this form. As a policy of the Institute, we require that the president, the vice president, and either the secretary or treasurer be an NIGP member. It can be agency or individual, but that is within our policy. So that's that first form. The second form is the member data form. This gives us what your data of membership looks like and roster for the previous year. So right now, when you're filling out your member data form, we're looking at your 2024 membership. This is where a form where you're going to indicate your total chapter members, and it'll be broken down by dual membership with the Institute, chapter only members, your retired members, as well as student members. Back in December, Merve did send out a list of NIGP members by state so that you can check that against your rosters to know who has a dual membership, because we do assess you a fee based on your chapter only member. So we want to make sure that we have that accurately. What's really important to us is that these two forms come in by January 31st. If not, that assessment fee, it goes up. We do that because these two forms are very critical to the functioning of our chapters and what we do. I need to know who your current leaders are, so I know who to be communicating with. And that member data form really allows us, when we comprise the net in this first quarter, what a snapshot of NIGP membership looks like and our chapter membership, we really need to have that accurate data. So those are the two forms that are due January 31st. The next set of forms that are due are our financial forms, and they are due March 1. The first one is our chapter financial form. I will tell you this is internal use only. It doesn't go to IRS. It doesn't send anywhere else. It's just for us to know. One, to know that you actually are keeping track of your financials, that you have a budget. It also allows me to track your budget over the years and to know the health of a chapter. We actually have been able to help chapters because we see a decline or a concern that all of a sudden you have a chapter with lots of money and all of a sudden you don't have anything. So it gives me kind of a quick glance if there's something that might be going on within the chapter. Starting this year, you will only have the option to upload a year-end balance sheet or whatever a final sheet of 2024 looks like. Most of them are in Excel. We no longer are doing a form to fill out. So whatever your year-end balance sheet looks like is what you provide when you go to click into this form. The group exemption update form, Like I said, you are independent entities. You are governed by your own bylaws and a board, not NIGP's board, but you are considered, they're considered in the IRS form, I hate the word, subordinates of the institute, in which you fall under our federal group exemption. So this form allows me to let the IRS know that you are still an active chapter within the institute. Canadian chapters do not need to complete this. And we do require that you belong to the group exemption or have individual tax exemption as a chapter. The only reason you would have individual tax exemption is because when you were formed as a chapter, you started that way. Or if for some reason you lost your tax exempt status, we'll talk about that with the 990 form on the next page, you are no longer eligible to be part of a group exemption. You have to be on your own. It's a government for you. It's a lot of red tape in there, but that's just the policy of how that works. So this form just lets me tell the IRS that you are a functioning nonprofit chapter of the Institute. So I'll talk about the seminar agreement in the IRS. I talked about this when you host a class. We have to have a seminar agreement on file. Again, I know most of you run on a calendar year. NIGP runs on a fiscal year. So these agreements run starting July 1. We do have to have one on file before you host a course. And it always is just an addendum to the previous year's agreement to be signed either by your Pro D chair or one of your officers. So let's talk about that IRS form that all chapters need to do. Regardless of if you are a small chapter or a big chapter, lots of money or no money, all chapters have to file an IRS 990. The majority of our chapters file that 990N, which they call the postcard. It's an online form and there are 8 questions to answer. It's very, very simple to do. Some of you start to get into the EZ or 990s. I showed you that link to the IRS. It will tell you, depending on your finances, which form should you file. Those chapters that are large, that get into those 990s and 990 EZ, they usually have a tax accountant do those for them, but this is a requirement of a chapter. So if you don't submit this 3 years in a row, the IRS, like lovingly, doesn't notify you that you haven't. They just cancel your nonprofit status. So this is where we talked about why it's important to make sure these are filed, because we want to keep you under the group exemption and keep you as a nonprofit. To get reinstated as a nonprofit is painstaking. It is financially cumbersome and it's a lot of work. So what I ask of you is, because I don't file the 990s, you do that on your own, is that once you've submitted them to the IRS, you keep and send a copy to me. That way I can keep track of if there is a year or 2 years that they are not completed, I can get to you as a chapter before you lose that status to make sure that we don't fall into that situation. So that is something the chapter does on their own that NIGP does not get involved in. There also could be state filings that you do on your own. Probably the most frequent one is going to be your incorporation. I really want chapters or a treasurer to, we're going to have a webinar just for treasurers, hopefully the second quarter of this year. I want to talk about more about incorporation. It's something that our NIGP wants all of our chapters to be is incorporated. We will cover some of those initial filing fees to do that, but it is a priority for our chapters to become incorporated. It allows another layer of protection for you as a chapter, an entity, as a body that's is performing and doing things. So it's important to have that. You also, as a chapter, may have state tax exemption, which you can apply for if you are under the NIGP group exemption. You have to have the federal tax exemption first, and then you can file for state tax exemption. Sometimes they request documentation from us to verify that. You can certainly ask me for that. We can send it to you. And depending on your state, there may be other things that you have to apply for statewide that's important for your treasurer to know about, to make sure that happens every year. So that is all about the forms. Anything or questions about any of those? Anything pop up?
Yeah, we did have a question to clarify. Is the chapter financial report prepared by the chapter's treasurer? Or I guess all reports too.
So that's a good question. I don't have any rules or about who files what forms. I've left up to the chapters to do, who makes most sense to fill them out. Your chapter leader form usually is probably your president or vice president, one of your top roles. The member data form has come a lot of times from your membership chair, because they're the ones that manage your database and your dues and things that come in from your members. For your financials, because it actually now is just an uploaded form, it should be your treasurer. They're the ones that would have a copy of that balance sheet as well as that group exemption, because I'm asking for some numbers, which makes sense for your treasurer to complete. Again, I do not have any requirements of who does that. I would say that once you decide within your chapter that you be consistent, because there are many years that we will get 2 and 3 chapter leader forms where people have taken upon themselves to fill it out, and I've got different information and different people. So I think it's best that you decide as a chapter who does that, put that in your policy and procedures manual to make sure that when you change officers, that they know the membership chair or the secretary should file the member data form or the new chapter leader form, just to be consistent. Good question, though. Anything else with questions Hervé posted about forms?
No, I don't believe
Nope.
so. We're good
Okay.
now. Thank you.
All right, guys, that was everything. Last but not least, it's just who your support staff is for everything that I've just talked about. Most of you know me. I've been around. I just celebrated 19 years with the Institute, so I've been here a while. Hervé is fairly new with us at the Institute, just celebrated 1 year, but new to chapters here. Karen Robinson is who you contact when you want to host a course, and anything about your website is going to be Ronnie. So with that said, I'm going to open it up to the group. I know I've shared a lot with you. Again, some of it may be review for chapter leaders who've been around a while. I'm hoping that for you that were new, that's a lot of good stuff that you maybe didn't know about. But anybody, please feel free to raise your hand, take yourself off mute, and ask any questions. Nothing? I'll take that as that I covered everything, or once they get the recording and see everything, you may have questions. So I will let you know, we have recorded this. I will include in next week's Leaders in the Loop, which you all will get. Hervé is working as you send in your chapter leader forms to update our database. That does happen live. So as those things come in and she makes those updates, you'll start getting that information as new leaders. I will include a link to this recording and this slide deck. So if there are board members that weren't here, you want to share it with somebody, there are hyperlinks within the slide deck, so you can get to those. Actually, we'll also, Hervé, let's keep the chat and we'll post that as well, because there are a lot of direct links to things that maybe people would want, or things that were shared that we will give to you all as well. So if you don't have any other questions, thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope this was helpful. And we are excited for our new leaders that have come in. We have a lot of things planned for you this year. Please never forget that myself, Hervé, and your chapter ambassadors are here to support you. You are not alone. That is what we are here for, is to help make your job easier, to make you shine as a chapter leader and make your chapter successful as well. So thank you so much, everybody, today. Appreciate your time. Have a good one. Happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.